for one of the first times in this show's history, we are going to start with Shedeur Sanders, but we're not actually starting with Shedeur. And so that sounds silly, but here's the point I'm making. So Shedeur came in, he obviously was terrible. He was 4 of 16. It's the worst completion percentage by a guy who threw at least 10 passes in 4 years in the NFL. It was a game that the Browns could have, and one would correctly argue, would have and should have won with just typical bad quarterback play. Instead, Gabriel was terrible, and then Shedeur came in and was somehow worse, and they lose. And the Ravens escape with a win they did not really deserve, despite Myles Garrett, who might get 25 sacks this year, just playing at an all-time level. But the reason I'm starting with Shedeur is because this morning Twitter was down for a bit. And I think Twitter has... I want to make sure I use the right word. Warped people's brains and ability to discuss Shedeur Sanders in a way. It's such an... What you have and what Twitter has rewarded from content creators is the most idiotic Shedeur Sanders takes being so amplified and being so force-fed to anyone who has any type of sports algorithm, that you have folks who know better, or at least should know better, polluting the public discourse with just nonsensical misinformation. And so you've got, and it's on, and this is one of the rare things where it is really a both sides problem. You have folks who gain traction and get engagement by finding anything imaginable to criticize Shedeur for, up to and including where he's sitting on the bench during and after a game, because that gets engagement. And then you have, on the other end of it, folks acting as if it takes a grand conspiracy for a 5th-round pick, 3rd-string quarterback to not have reps with the starting offense, when it is totally reasonable that during training camp, a guy who was not actually ever, maybe you think he should have been competing for the starting job, he wasn't. The Browns, again, you can make the argument that the Browns simply don't know what they're doing. I don't know what the biggest Shedeur fans out there, how they can make that argument. I don't know how they square the fact that the entire league said he's not worth a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round pick. And I understand it, there was some league-wide conspiracy talk. It's all so stupid. But set all that aside, in training camp, the Browns looked at Joe Flacco as their starter and Dillon Gabriel, of the two young guys, as the higher priority because he was the higher draft pick. That's how that works. And then, once Dillon Gabriel became the starter, they looked at their 3rd-round rookie as a guy who needed as much practice reps as possible, so they were not splitting practice reps, which is totally and completely reasonable. Life as a 5th-round pick in this league is hard. It is supposed to be hard, and it's not always fair. You get thrown into action, and you have to look better than Shedeur did. And it feels like deep down, people who know better know that, but deep down, folks also know, oh my God, This really gets people going. And it's just so dumb. And so now what we will get is this week, Shedeur is going to get a real look. He will be the starter against the Raiders. He will get the full week of practice. He will get a game plan to his strength, catered to him, and we'll see what he looks like. And typically in sports, if you're good enough, none of the other stuff really matters. And you don't have a lot of, as a fifth-round quarterback, you're not going to have a ton of better opportunities than this one. Knowing you are the starter all week long, going against a bad team that is on a shorter week themselves, and an opportunity to remake, at least temporarily, that Browns quarterback discussion, because Gabriel has been really bad. And if Shedeur goes out there and balls, maybe he gets another week. But my colleagues in the media that know it's not at all outrageous for Shedeur to have no reps with the ones and implying or outright saying differently because either they want to be in good with Prime or it's what they think their particular fans or followers will appreciate, or just because they think it'll get the most motion on the internet. It's so bad. And it really is a good example of, this is a real example of social media at times making the discourse dumber. And so that's why I wanted to spend a few minutes on it off the top. We don't have to spend more time on it. We will see what he looks like against the Raiders. I think Dillon Gabriel's been the worst starting quarterback in the league this year. And the only reason that you wouldn't bench Gabriel for Shedeur is if, when he has a full week of reps in practice and is ready to go against the Raiders, he looks at all like he looked in that Ravens game. Because in that Ravens game, he looked like a guy who was wholly unequipped for the job. And I didn't love him coming out of school, but I certainly liked him more coming out of school than Dillon Gabriel. And in that game, he looked like a guy that was a ways away from being a ways away.